Today, you're gonna build a complete application to monitor web API's performance using the JS Decorators proposal with no frameworks. You get to know in practice how this exciting proposal will change the way you write JavaScript applications, how it could be useful for your daily day, and how you can start experimenting with it using Babel plugins. We also built a beautiful user interface on the terminal to show all metrics from our response time and also turn on and turn off the log results. Hello my friend, I'm Erick Wendel, and I'd say today I brought the most ever exciting JavaScript proposal, the JavaScript Decorators, a work in progress feature that has been evolving over the last 5 years, finally was moved to the final stage on the TC39 to become officially part of the language. If you are TypeScript, C# or Java developer, you would be familiar with Decorators, custom annotations or filters. This is a game-changing feature for the language, and I'm excited to deep dive into it with you. Well, get a drink and let's begin. And don't forget to press the like button. It helps me a lot with the work I've been doing in this channel. If you are not subscribed yet, please subscribe now so you won't miss all the content I've been publishing here. Oh, and I have big news. I'm just releasing a new training course focused on Node.js streams. I'll leave the link in the description so you can check this out for the course grade and details. In April, this proposal moved forward and became stage 3 on the TC39 proposals. It means that we are close to seeing it in the language soon. For you who've never heard about decorators, they are functions to intercept and extend behaviors in functions, classes, and properties. For example, in the Nest.js framework or even in AngularJS applications, decorators are widely used to prevent you from duplicating a bunch of code every time you write a new application. Instead of handling the Node.js ATP API, they give you functions to help you specify endpoints, docs, design patterns, and complex implementations by just annotating a function, class, or property. Well, but it seems too abstract, right? Let me give you an example of what we are gonna write with me today. Look at this handler function. The handler function is a method responsible of handling a route, like an HTTP post or HTTP GET endpoint. By default, the Node.js HTTP module needs to return a string and HTTP code in each request. You can imagine that we might have replicated code in all endpoints for responding with a message, a status code, and closing the connection. Instead, all endpoints will return a JSON object, and I will delegate the task of handling response to someone else, to my route decorator. On my route decorator, I'll wait for the handler function to finish, and I will assume it always returns the status code and the message. Then I'll call the write head and end functions from a single place. The cool thing about decorators is that we can stack them on top of each other. We can have one to handle the endpoint, another to handle errors, another to log results, another to monitor performance, and much more. Decorators are the secret behind the success of Angular and Nest.js applications, in my opinion. Now that you understood the power behind it, we are gonna build our own application using this amazing proposal with JavaScript. I'll be using the Node.js 18.7 and Babel plugins that help us to experiment with the proposal, as it is not yet available in the language. I'll start writing the backend side and then I'll make a beautiful interface on the terminal. Are you excited about this? Then let's get started. Alright, as I told you, I'm using Node.js 18.7 and let's create a folder here. Well, I'll call it performance monitor using decorators. Very nice. All right, so let's init our application, and then I'm going to install all the packages we need to experiment with this module. Okay, so first of all, let's install the Babel. I will just break some line here. Will be npm install Babel at core at 7.18.10. I like to specify the versions, so if they are gonna change something, this class will never break, okay? You're gonna be able to reproduce anytime you want. All right, I'm gonna install the Babel node at 7.18.10 as well. Okay, so the Babel will be used because the whole implementation, well, I missed something here. All right, let's try install each one independently. All right, let's check this out. It's there, right? So let's do to the same thing to the other one, Babel node at 7.18.10. All right, I'm gonna just push this for here. Well, we're gonna need the plugins now that implements the whole proposal, right? So we're gonna install the Babel at slash plugin proposal decorators at 7.8.10. I'm gonna copy this whole thing because the other one's almost the same. So this one is the implementation, so we can use the decorators on the language. Okay, no matching version. Oh, here it's 18.10. All right, what else? Well, we're gonna need more one. We're gonna need the class properties. Class properties on the version 7.18.6. All right, and then we're gonna need the class static block and the same version. Perfect. So we have everything we need now. All right, let's create a file right now, which we will call as Babel RC. This is the configuration where we're gonna specify those packages we just installed, okay? So plugins will be an array, and then we're gonna use at Babel. Actually, we can copy paste. So let's copy the decorators one. And then we're gonna specify which version we're gonna use. And here will be the 2021-12, the most closest one to the JavaScript proposal, right? Because Babel is implementing it, so we can implement on the JavaScript in the future. All right, let's do to the properties as well, and also to the block. Well, we could do like a Command D and copy the whole thing. Will this work? Let's check this out. All right, here we're gonna need comma, close here, and close here. Perfect. That's all that we need, okay? Perfect. So we have both plugins, so we are ready to use our decorators right away. All right, so I'm gonna install here the nodemon. So for each change we have, the package will restart our server. Oops, it's actually just 2. Very nice. All right, let's go and let's create our src file, index.js. I'll put here console.log test, just to check if everything is working out. All right, perfect. Let's create our start in our dev. I will actually name here as start dev, okay? All right, so here on the start will be npx babel dot node index.js on the RCRC, right? And for dev, it will be exactly the same thing. However, we will call with the node mode. So we'll call node mode exec npm start. Oh, nice. So npm run dev, run start dev, right? All right, the test is working. Let's try building some decorator just to make sure our class will work. So I will call server, new server, and that's it. Well, how do we create a decorator function? It's easy. We're gonna create a function first, function. I'll call it maybe route, and it gives us the target, the kind, and the name. All right. So I will just call the target, but I will just console the whole thing here. Target, kind, name. And then we can start decorating it. So we can pass just route to our server. But here we can see that the VS Code is calling a lot of stuff here, right? On the TypeScript way. So we can change the whole thing here. Well, you can press Command and comma or Control comma to open the user workspace. Or you can click on code and use the preferences, or just use Control comma or just Command comma. All right. So there, I'm gonna use the workspace, which is for just this project, and I will just write here JavaScript validate. And here you can see the JavaScript validation. It's on. I'm gonna disable it, and I'm gonna disable for TypeScript as well. All right. So you're gonna see here on the VS Code that we have two more properties right here. All right, just it. Now you can see that the error just moved away. All right, when we run our code, we can see that our decorator is working, all right? Our syntax is working. So if you are trying to run this without the Babel, it will show some errors because at in the name, it's not a valuable command here. All right. So let's start creating our project right away and see the power of this thing in practice. All right, to create an HTTP server in Node.js, we're gonna use some modules here. So I'm gonna use HTTP create server, okay? And then the create server, we need a handler. So I will call static async handler. We're gonna receive request and response, and then I will just return for now response.end. Okay. All right. So here I'm gonna use the create server, and as this function is static, we're gonna use the static. Okay. The handler, and I'm gonna just start our server to listen on 3000, and then console.log server is running at 3000, and this we don't need anymore. All right, I just saved it, and we can try opening another terminal here. Oh, we saw some errors. I wrote wrong return. Let's check this out. All right, server is running. So let's run la curl on 3000. We're gonna receive an okay. All right, perfect. Well, to save time, I'm gonna copy this command because we're gonna use a lot, and I will put on our package.json file. So I'm gonna call it curl get, and I will put it right there. But also I'm gonna use like an route here. So I will put it in commas, and we need to use the backslash, right? Oh, nice. Well, to do the post one, I'm gonna do the same thing. Post curl, but with curl it's x post, and we pass data. And for data, we're gonna use name. I'm gonna use Erick Wendel. Okay, I will do the same thing we did there. So I'm just gonna copy paste this command. So for name and for Erick Wendel. All right, nice. Well, I'm gonna save and let's see if our npm curl post it's working fine. Oops, I am the wrong path. All right, so let's try running again. So the post is okay, returning okay, and for get, it should be the same result, right? Okay, very nice. You can notice that our log is just going through when we started our application, right? We're gonna change the behavior here for every time we're gonna request our application, we're gonna metrify the values here. All right, so let's close this one. And let's implement our route, okay? So first of all, if the request.method it's post, we're gonna do something, right? Otherwise, we're gonna just respond with right head 200 and response.end with a result. So I'm gonna simulate here a database, all right? So const db equal new map, because the goal is to see how the decorators will work in practice, right? Oh, nice. So JSON string file and db.values. And I'm gonna put in array so we can see the results. Otherwise, if it's a post, then we're gonna wait for the method. So const data equal, and let's import one method from events. And I'm gonna grab the once. So once we have on the request, we have an event data, then we're gonna parse it, right? So item JSON parse data. Then I'm gonna save this one so we can use one method to create an ID equal crypto, and will be random UAG, right? Nice. So item.id will be a fake ID that we're gonna build, and we're gonna set the item with the ID, and then we're gonna set the ID. All right, and then we can copy and paste this here. All right, so the status code should be 201 because it's created, and here we can return like a JSON string file item. Okay, but I'm gonna put here as message. I think it would be better. And here we can put it as message as well. All right, just saved it. So when we run post, we're gonna save an item, and when we run get, we're gonna retrieve all the data we have on the map function, all right? Okay, let's start. So curl post. Oh, some error there. Writer after end. Oh, it's missing a return here. Saved, and let's try again. All right, post, we're gonna return, and now it has the ID, but then we run get, and we have all the data, right? Nice. So you can see here that we are replicating code, right? Every time we create a new route, we use this function. So maybe we could intercept the handler function and make something here to reproduce all of these steps from a single place. All right, so let's create our decorator function file. So I'm gonna move our route that we just got here, right? This whole function here. And I'm gonna put here on decorator. And I'm gonna export it as route, okay? And then I'm gonna import it again. So route. So everything should keep working. All right, let's implement our route, okay? So I'm gonna remove this console log here. So first of all, to make sure it's a route, we're gonna use in methods, right? So for every time we have a method, we're gonna do those steps, all right? Nice. So if the kind is different than method, we're gonna return the target, okay? Because it's a function or either it's a property. We're gonna work on methods. All right, now we're gonna intercept or extend our behavior. So I'm gonna return an async function and I'm gonna receive the request and the response as the handler is doing, right? Okay, look how amazing is it. Now, from our function, we're gonna return here status code 201 and message item. All right, and then I'm gonna move this whole piece of code to our function. I'm gonna do to the same thing to the get, okay? So get here will be the status code 200 and the message will be here. All this replicated code will go away now. And this return is not needed anymore. All right, so we have status code and message for both of them. Okay, let's go back to our decorator function and let's implement it. All right, first thing we wanna do is to extend our target, right? We're gonna intercept it. So we're gonna, first of all, we're gonna await for it. So I'm gonna use apply. I'm gonna use this request and response. So this means that we are calling actually the target. So this function will be executed first, and then we're gonna grab this result. Look how amazing is it. So from here, I will have the status code and the message. Woo, very nice, isn't it? Well, now it's easy, right? We're gonna just grab here the message and the status code. Just it. Very nice, isn't it? I think this message here doesn't make too, oops, here actually it's message only. Okay, but I think I prefer to return only the message, not an object in this case. I think it should be nicer to see on the terminal. All right, just save it. And then let's make sure everything's working yet. And then let's, I actually gonna install a method here called Initialize. It helps us a lot to work on many package.json scripts. So you don't need to rewrite every time. All right, let's call Initialize. Actually, you should install globally. I installed it on my project, but it's not a problem. You can see here all the tasks. I think for you, you're gonna have to use npx first to actually target it from our current node modules. All right, so I'm gonna use post first, right? Post. And now we saved it. And let's do the same thing to the get. See how amazing is it, my friend? Now we have all the results here and all the data here, but we have a single place to manage them all. Oh, nice. I love it. Well, let's try doing something even more advanced. The goal now is actually to measure the response time. So I'm gonna actually, we could copy and paste the route one. We're gonna call it response time tracker. All right. We're gonna have the same method, and I'm gonna do something further. I'm gonna copy the random ID here, and I'm gonna paste it right on the beginning of the file. So we're gonna have something like, oh, we have an ID for the request. Okay. So I'm gonna call it request ID, and I'm gonna generate an ID for it. All right. Perfect. Now, instead of an async function here, I'm gonna just return a function because I will handle this promise by hand. Okay. So after the request response, I'm gonna grab here the request started at. Okay. So will be the performance.now. The performance.now is actually a global variable in the Node.js. It's very similar to the date now, but it's better use like this one. Okay, so I'm gonna execute the function without the await here, and I'm gonna call here after execution. Okay, because this will be a promise that is not fulfilled yet, so I'm gonna prepare it to actually metrify or get the results or how long it took to finish the request. All right. Well, I will create some data here just to like, oh, we are measuring it. So the request ID is this one. The name of the function is then this name. And then we're going to have the method. So it will be the request.method. It's very similar of how the APM are working nowadays. URL. All right. I'm going to format it. And then look how amazing is it. We can get after execution dot finally, because it's a promise. And then I will actually do something special here. We can put console.time. I will call benchmark using just the console. And finally, the time end. So we can measure when it started and when it ended. Okay. And then I will return this function after execution. All right. So I'm just like attaching an event here. We can check on the terminal how it's working. All right. I will expose this function as well. And then I'm going to import it right before our route. Okay. I will comment here because the order it's important. So it must be first because it changes the response data. Okay. So after we make everything here, we actually are changing the response data. So it makes sense for us. All right, just save it. Some arrows. Let's see, it's not defined. Okay, because I didn't import it, right? Okay, let's check it out. All right, let's use the NQL again. And let's use the post first. And see how amazing is it. It took 5 milliseconds. Let's try with the get one and check how long the request took. Ooh, 0.7. That's amazing, right? Let's make something to make the things interesting here. I'm gonna import from timers promises the set timeout. Okay. And then I will create a random timeout here just to check our benchmark values changing more often. So parse int math random 100. Okay, just the max value will be 100 milliseconds. So let's run again, post and get. Notice that if we run only nt, it will execute only the previous command we used. So we don't need to choose the whole tasks again. So you can see the benchmark is working here. All right, but it's just a log, right? We should have some beautiful UI to make our things working as well. All right, so let's implement it. Ooh, very nice. Well, first of all, I will create another function here. I will call onRequestEnded. All right, so we're gonna make everything that's working here on a separate function. All right, so I'm gonna need this data. All right, so I'm gonna grab here. I will use the response. I'm gonna grab this value as well. Request started at. That's it for now. All right. Then this function will return a new function. All right. This is a closure. Very nice. All right. Now, as we've done here to our request started at, let's do to the request ended at. Okay. So here I'm gonna comment this function and I'm gonna comment the benchmark as well. And we're gonna do it by scratch as well. Okay, so let's do the time diff. Will be the request ended at last requested started at, right? So we're gonna grab the seconds because it's all in milliseconds, and we're gonna round it with the time diff. Okay, so notice how amazing is it? We can have data.status code. What is it? It's the response. Status code. Data.status message will be the response. Status message. What else? Data.elapsed will be our time diff. And I will grab only the two numbers there, and I'm gonna concat with the milliseconds. All right. And then we can log it. So I'm gonna create a new function here called log. And I'm gonna receive args and console.log args. So we're gonna reuse it everywhere. So I'm gonna call it benchmark and data. All right. After it, what should we do? We should actually use our after execution here, dot finally, and we just pass our function, right? But actually it's missing something here. I will grab here on finally will be another function which we'll call this whole function just to make it easier to read later. Response, what else? Request started at. And then we call the on finally here, just to make sure you can make we here. And something that you making sure, assuming it will always be a promise object, right? Otherwise, we won't have finally and it will break. So our decorator will only work on async functions, all right? Nice. Let's save it and let's check it out. Now we should see logs with more richer information. All right, let's run nt again with just get. Oh, how amazing is it, right? We can see the lapsed, we can see the status message, the status code. This is actually from Node.js internals, but we have the URL and the whole request ID. Ooh, very nice. And you can see the whole thing is different, right? Actually, the ID, it's being the same, right? So actually, the ID should be here. Let's check this out. For each request, we have a different request ID. All right, now the ID is different. Perfect, we are almost there. All right, our application is almost there. Now we should implement our UI. And we're gonna have a beautiful UI here for our terminal. Okay, So you can install the blessed on the 0.1, all right, .81, and the blessed-contrib, which will be the 4.11.0. This library helps us a lot to make beautiful interfaces here. I will let the whole link and the whole documentations here on the description, but for our examples, you should follow with me. Okay, so here, first of all, I will make an environment variable, and I'm gonna use it as no UI, okay? Because I'm gonna use the UI disable true. So when we have this environment variable, we're gonna omit the whole UI and only use the logs. So let's go back to our code, and actually here we're gonna use here if dot process dot env dot UI disable. So if it's disabled, we're gonna print it, right? Otherwise, we're gonna avoid this one. All right. I'll do actually something smarter here. I'll actually call is UI disable, and I will grab this environment variable. And if is UI disable, then I will use the console.log. All right. So let's try using this one. I'm gonna use NQL again, and I'm gonna use no UI. No UI should have for us the logs enable, right? So I'm gonna grab the get, and we should see the logs, right? But if we use only the start should have the UI. So I'm gonna use get again, all right, and curl get. And now you can see that we haven't seen any logs from our benchmark or our APM, okay? Very nice. So with the start, we are running now with the console.log. Okay, I'm gonna stop it, and I'm gonna execute actually the dev, because dev is using the npm start, and we can see everything changing, all right? Wait, if you watch this video this far and haven't left your like yet, you know, right? And you should also subscribe to this channel so you're not gonna miss all the contents I've been creating here. I left here in the video description a bunch of links for you to follow me after this video. There, I also left my training courses in Portuguese, and some of them I'm building for English-speaking people. In case you want to be notified about all new content I've produced, I invite you to join our Telegram channel. And don't forget to take a look at my website. I've been giving a lot of talks around the world, and I'm sure that you'll find something useful to study there. All right, you should go to this URL that I put here in the description so you can check out the whole NPM package and how it's working, okay? We're gonna use this line chart, all right? But you can see a lot of powerful interfaces projects that is already working there. So you should go there, let your start, and so on. Okay, so we're gonna work with our line chart. This is the line chart, and we're gonna put here the whole response time so we can metrify during the whole time, okay? And let's go to the UI, all right? And let's import it. So blessed will be equal require blessed, okay? And I'm gonna do the same here. Will be the contrib and blessed/contrib, all right? Nice. So I'm gonna use the screen from the blessed.screen, okay? And let's create our class UI. Then I will just module exports UI. Perfect. Well, what we're gonna do now, as you can see on the docs, if you go to the line, we have some configuration that we should use to the line, all right? So I'm gonna make exactly the same thing they are making here on the docs, all right? So let's go there. First of all, I will create a variable here, a property actually, and I'm gonna use the line, okay? I'm gonna put a label would be response time in MS, and show legend true. Okay, well, I'm gonna print it out. In one side I will have the whole title, right? And we are actually monitoring get and post results. Okay, so for get request, I'm gonna have an object, and I will define the title would be the get/people. All right, and style, I will define a color for this legend. It will be on the top and in the left, yellow. For the post request would be the same thing, without the comma here. And here I'll call it as post, and here will be post. And I'll use it as green, okay? Very nice. So something that the docs tells us that we should grab this whole data is that we should fill the X and Y coordinates. So here, let's just check it out here. We have here USA and Europe, right? So we are making the get and the post. We have the X here, the coordinates, and we have the Y as well. So the Y is the whole line as well, okay? Perfect. So let's create a function right here to create this empty list. Create empty list. So we're gonna receive the length and a value, and I will create an array from length. Exactly the length here. We actually can call length for both. And then we're gonna have here just return eval. Okay, so it will be an array with these length positions filled with this value. All right, so how do you use that? Right, so I'm gonna create here get empty coordinates will be an empty one, and should be Y and Z, right? So create empty list will be first one with 10 positions, and then Y exactly the same thing, but here I will fill it with ones. All right, so in one side we have the string empty, and then in the other side we have just the values coming. All right, perfect. Let's call this function here, and you see in practice how it's working. All right, so I will do the same for post, and we are almost there. All right, so we have the line, we have the coordinates for post and get, and now we're gonna build our constructor. So I will actually get this screen that we just created out there, and then I will use the screen dot append line. Okay, the line we just created here. Perfect. Then I will create another function here to render this graph. So render graph. And then it will be this line dot set data. And it will be this get request, right? And the same for post. So we change here to post request. After it, we should just, oops, here it's missing to close the whole thing. And then we call the string dot render. All right, let's see if it's working in practice. On the decorator function, I know the responsibility shouldn't be here. We shouldn't call the UI here, but you know, we are just trying the decorators function so we can experiment with it. All right, first of all, if the UI is disabled, we shouldn't import the UI, right? So is UI disable, and I'll put just the else here. So we're gonna do another thing. So if it's disabled, I'm gonna create an UI here variable, and this UI will receive a fake data, right? So it will have only an object for now. And then if the UI is enabled, we're gonna import it. So it's the UI, and then the UI will receive new UI. Perfect. Well, I think with it, we could see some changes on our terminal. Let's see how it's working there. Very nice. We saw that our whole code is not doing anything. However, let's try changing it, right? Actually, we could do, let me see. Let me call here on the response time tracker because it will be executed on the first time. So I will call just the render graph. And I'm gonna save it and let's see. Let's call the start again. Very nice. Now you can see it working, right? So we have the response time here, but the legend is not here yet. Okay, let's add the data here. So we're gonna see some changing here. So I'm gonna remove this render graph. And on the UI side, let's put a code here so we can update the graph, okay? So update graph, and we're gonna receive get or post, right? And the actual value. So our target will be if the method is get, well, then we're gonna use the get request, all right? Otherwise, we're gonna use the post request to update the data. All right. Well, then we're gonna drop the first item, okay, from the UI coordinate, and then we're gonna push it. All right, so we've been always removing an item and adding another. Then we're gonna call the render graph again. Okay, so every time we call the graph, we are updating these coordinates, adding the value, and rendering again. Very nice. So on the decorator, we should call it. So every time we have a request, we're gonna update it, okay? All right, so here I'm gonna call update graph. So will be the method from the data, right? And seconds. The elapsed here, I will just make to log, okay? But for our graph, I'm gonna use methods. Okay, let's save it. And let's run our Initialize again and check out our post and get results. I think it's something with the zoom. Let's try out. Actually, I'm gonna try npm run start and let's check if it shows better. And let's run. Let's check if it's working. So I will run post again. Ooh, now we see the value, right? So the green one, but it seems that the legends here are not working as we expect. Let's go back to our UI here. And I think we should call the render graph right after the constructor. So we render the first screen and then we update the data. So I'm going to stop it, run with the start again. All right, now we can see the values, right? So let's use the get this time. Ooh, nice. Let's see the post. Great. So they are very close. But it's still our title and it's not appearing, right? Ah, here. There's a typo here. So it's a legend, not legend. All right. So to see all these values updating in real time, we're going to install a very useful library called Autocannon. Oh, now we see the get, right? Oh, it's because my zoom here, it's so big and I didn't change the whole value. But if we go right here, we can see if it's working. So let's run again. I'm gonna run curl get, curl post, and now you can see that it's changing real time, okay? All right, so we're gonna make a load test to see all these values changing in real time as well. So I'm gonna install Autocannon on the version 7. Let me put this way so you can see better. 7.9.0. Oh, it should be in development mode, but that's fine. All right, so we should run the start again. And I'm gonna open one terminal here. And I'm gonna put stretch then malt here. All right, we have both reports here. I'm gonna use NQL. I'm gonna run get in one side, and I'm gonna run post in another side, okay? So the post is the first one, and the get is the another one. And you can see the whole graph. Oops, it's not curl, right? It's actually the load test. Load test 1, and the other, the load test 2nd. Load test 2nd. So here 1, and the other side another. And let's check it out. Well, we can see that it's running a lot, right? But it's a bit freezing, right? Why? Because we are blocking the Node.js event loop to make this thing work. So I think we should make some method here to prevent it from blocking, right? So let's do a last thing here. On the UI side, no, actually on the decorator side, we should create a variable here. And I'm calling it methods time tracker. So I'm gonna update the graph only between 200 milliseconds, so we prevent it from blocking. So performance.now and post will be the same idea, okay? So on request ended, I'm gonna put it there, and then I'm put it here as well. Okay, just to remember why we're going to do this here, simulating that we already made some calculations or spawned the process in another one, okay? Just to know that we are blocking the event loop here, and this is not good. So let's track the diff. The diff will be the request ended at, all right, the last time that method, so methods time tracker on the data method. So the last time we updated the graph should be less or equal 200 milliseconds, okay? Tracker diff, it's equal or greater than 200. And then we will update the whole thing, okay? And then after it, we'll just update this method with the time we just updated, okay? Why? Because this will prevent blocking the whole thing. So each 20 milliseconds for each method should be good for to avoid blocking them all. All right. So I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna start again. Run NQL in both terminals here, and one side is the first, the other side is the second. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna run one side and another, and let's check this out. All right, now we can see everything's working right now, right? Ooh, we can see the whole graph working. We can see the whole thing working. Well, the best thing here for us should split this UI in another program and receive this data via HTTP or via datagram. But now we did everything by a decorator. Whoa, how nice is it, my friend? We just create a decorator that just passing an at response time tracker, we would be able to create an UI. We will be able to calculate the execution, and actually we can have the same thing for no UI. So let's try out without an UI. So one side is the second, the other side is the other one. Oh, actually, the server is not ready yet, so we're gonna see some errors. Okay, NQL. All right, the second one, the first one. And now we should see all logs here, right? Oh, nice. Now we are seeing all the function running. The GraphQL is not a function. All right. For this case, we should mock this function, right? So we're gonna put here as a mocked function. And now let's try again. Okay, let's run both. Now we can see the 201. We can see the 200. So both of them are here. We are logging all the results, and we can actually see both logs or the UI. How amazing is it, my friend? Well, you can see all the proposal, all the data about the proposal here in the description. I put the links there so you can check it out. But my friend, this is a game changing for the language. Imagine that you could put more and more decorators here. And this is how Nest.js and AngularJS has been succeeded so much using this kind of function. All right. All this project is already here on the description. Please don't forget to let your like and actually to put the star on the project, all right? Decorators are powerful, and as soon as we have them in the language, we'd see the whole library ecosystem changing. As they help us to reuse code, extend the language, and inject behavior, we will benefit from all current libraries and frameworks, and I think even the Node.js platform will start using it to grow faster. Using decorators, we write them once and reuse them forever as our application grows. I left here in the video description the link for the proposal so you can get closer, send feedback, and be also part of it. Ufa, I hope you found this chat useful, and don't forget to check the content in English playlist here on the channel. I've been building a lot of new content and I'm sure you're gonna like it. Comment below what you wanna see in the next videos, and please send this video to all your people at your work, your friends, and your study groups. I'm sure it can inspire them as well. I hope this content has exceeded your expectations. Subscribe to this channel so you can be notified about all new content I publish here. I'm Erick Wendel, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh, porra. And how... De novo. Oh, meu Deus. Come on, man. Really? Come on. 39. Yee. Too fast. I was just seeing in it.